Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Berry County Board of Commissioners. It is now called to order. Will Commissioner, staff, and guests please stand for invocation and pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day in Berry County. We ask for your blessings upon this board and all those in attendance. Give us the wisdom and guidance to do your will, to do the right things, to protect and grow our county here in Berry. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. For purposes of attendance, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Colton absent. Campbell absent. Doster.
Present.
Getty.
Here.
Hatfield.
Present.
Jackson.
Present.
Smelker.
Here.
Tunison.
Here.
Thank you. Approval of written agenda. At this time, any member of the board or public may ask for an item to be removed from the consent agenda and placed under items for consideration. Hearing no such request, does any commissioner wish to change the agenda additionally? Hearing no such request, the agenda is approved as written. Reports from state and county officers. Any state or county officers present who wish to deliver an update or report to the board? Okay, limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lewis Hedges, and I reside in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I recently have the great pleasure of starting as Executive Director at Berry Conservation District. So I just wanted to come in this morning and introduce myself, tell you that I'm really excited to be in this position and a part of all the great things that are going on here in Berry County. Thanks a lot.
Hey, Jamie, would you give us a little background on yourself?
Absolutely. I've been in outdoor recreation management and environmental education since 2001, and one of my great pleasures in that field is basically getting people outdoors, helping them understand how that ecology works, and becoming a part of solutions to the challenges that we face in the environment. So for the last 3 years, that put me in the position of running a 500-acre land conservancy easement for Rotary Club in Traverse City, Michigan. And we were working on opening that up to the public as a private park. And now I'm excited to be a part of this venture.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jamie, we look forward to working with you. Congratulations. Welcome to Berry County.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Additional public comment.
Good morning.
Morning.
Ted DeVries, Prairieville Township trustee and former township clerk. Hopefully you had a chance to read the email that I sent out, but I'm going to read it again. I had a chance to watch your meeting on the 20th and read the article in the banner giving a summary of what happened during the meeting. You really need to approve hiring at least one full-time deputy clerk with an additional one full-time deputy clerk as soon as possible. With Pam retiring at the end of the year, this is going to need a full-time staff. She is going to need a full-time staff and time to train them as we approach the 2024 elections that will be totally different than any elections our current county and township staffs had to face. I also watched the meeting where Pam explained many of the new procedures and requirements that will be implemented starting with the presidential primary in February. Some the state has yet to complete. 2024 is also a training year for all election officials and inspectors. All eyes will be on the election process in 2024, and Berry County needs to step up and support our clerk's office with the manpower she needs to make it a success. Budgets can be amended. Let's make this a top priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Additional public comment.
Good morning.
Morning.
Holly Lennar, Deputy Clerk. Thank you for considering the reinstating of the Deputy Clerk position in our office. 5 years ago, I took an oath to serve Berry County to the best of my ability. And in the times that we are in, this is not easy for us. Customer service is a huge challenge. And we see people who are suffering and angry, confused, and they feel shameful every day. My goal is to help them, and hopefully they leave happier than when they arrived. With constant backlog and stress that we have to deal with, it's getting harder every day to do that. Everything has a deadline in our office. Everyone has a fire that they need us to put out. CPLs, personal protection orders, divorce, jury, elections, civil suits, custody, felony, vital records. Now we have the set-asides. They're all processed in our office. And when we get behind, it affects everybody, the judges, the public, our coworkers, MDOC, the Berry County Sheriff's Office. It's not a good feeling when we're behind. But we're serving the public, we're serving the county every day. So I want to serve the county that I live in. I take pride in my job, and I have a great work ethic. I'm here 99% of the time, and I want to continue to work here. I don't want to leave. So I ask that you value us enough to reinstate that position of Deputy Clerk so that we can continue to fulfill the oath that we took to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Hi. My name is Kayla Fyan, and I'm the civil clerk here at Berry County. I'm here today to request more staff for our clerk's office and to go into some details of some of the struggles that we're having with all the new requirements and staffing shortages. The biggest change I would say that our office has made is splitting our office into two. One office is strictly for court work and elections, along with our first deputy clerk, Sarah Vandenberg's office. Across the hall is our vital clerks department, accounting department, and our clerk, Pam Palmer's office. There are many factors on why we've made the change, but here are a few. First, our court work is gravely behind. All three clerks are not fully trained, working on domestic, felony, and civil cases, all which are booming since the pandemic. And I don't think I'm far off with saying 50% of our domestic cases, and I would say about 25% of our civil cases are in pro per, meaning they do not have an attorney representing them. They're trying to do this all on their own. I believe a big factor of this is due to not having the ability to pay for an attorney. This comes with many issues for our office. It doubles the calls, doubles the walk-ins, and we're being yelled at for not giving them legal advice because we cannot give them legal advice, but we have to make do. Another huge change our office has made is by going by appointments for our vital records department. This includes birth, DBAs, notaries, CPLs, marriage, and so on. We have one clerk and one half-time clerk doing all of this. There is not enough time to continue to do the walk-ins, so we went by appointment only. This is marriage season, kindergarten roundup time, and vacation time, which all require vital records. The other task given to our vital clerk is jury duty. Jury trials are up by 50% in the last 2 years, and this one clerk is doing all of that. The other aspect of splitting the office was our accounting. We have one clerk, no backup, to do all of the accounting, to write all the checks for the county. So quite frankly, we're one big health issue away of not being able to write the checks, including the check to consumers to keep the lights on. Lastly, I'd like to point out elections. As you have heard in the last meeting, we do not know yet all of the requirements or all the work that will come with the new changes. This could easily be a full-time job. I say this with many years of election experience before coming to Berry County. We are at the end of our rope. We are pleading for more help, as all of us clerks truly do love our jobs, but we cannot continue the way it's going. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Sarah Vandenberg. I'm not only here as a public person, but I am also here as the first deputy clerk, one of the employees who's directly affected by the staff shortage. I do want to take the opportunity to thank you for taking the time by doing your due diligence and considering the position in our office. Today, I will receive my 15-year service award. As I reflect on my first day of service here to today, our office has changed in many ways. The demands have increased on staff and workload has also increased. We have not been able to maintain a level of customer service that we used to. Our shortage has not only affected our outside customers, as I mentioned to you last week, it has affected our inside customers. Our inside customers, other departments, are affected the most. They have been patient with us. However, I am afraid that soon the patience will wear thin. When we are behind in our work, it affects everyone from the court to the treasurer's office. I want you to know that we are not asking for a new position. We are just simply asking for the position that was taken away when our first deputy retired in March of last year. I would like to touch on the financial aspect of the position. I work with the money taken into the office every day, and I see what revenues have increased and decreased. When the HR position was created in the administrator's office, it saved the county money because that position is not paid the rate that our first deputy was. None of our staff had received increases in wages when we took on the additional tasks that needed to be done. Money has been saved there. We don't have money in the budget for overtime. So when we work outside of our scheduled work hours, we are compensated with comp time. It works fine for us. However, there is just simply not time for us to take it off to use it. It's a vicious circle. There is no time for adequate training of staff right now. We have no backup for our elections, our financial clerk, nor myself. We all have families and lives outside of the office, and to take time off, we have been scheduling time off around board claims, elections, and busy court days. Not to mention, when we come back from time off, we are further behind than when we left. We all take great pride and are very dedicated to our office. We have a great team. However, it is getting to the point that if we don't get some more help, our team members will be leaving our office. I do understand your duty to the financial aspect of the county. However, I implore you to think about the human aspect. It's more than money, it's human lives and mental health. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there additional public comment?
Hello, Shelley Lake Irving. So we're supposed to be secure in the peace of God. I'm learning a lot about the Bible lately. God's got this, it'll be okay. The problem that comes with that statement is that it provokes people to inaction. Give it to God, but don't do anything. In Psalm 27:14, it says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord." And I am also waiting, but I am also going to not have inactivity. So I wanted to let you know that on May 20th of this year, I emailed the Freedom of Information Act to all of our township and city clerks for the electronic poll book data for November 22 and May of 23. I have typed up a brief synopsis of what I have got back. The state of Michigan, the Bureau of Elections, has sent memos to the clerk saying delete it 7 days after the final canvass. But USC 52-20701 states that the federal retention period for election materials is 22 months. Michigan's even further, 24 months with 168.811. I did not want any personal information, no cybersecurity, no software information. I simply wanted what I was legally allowed to ask for. As of today, June 27th, I have a minute 30, I better talk fast. As of today, here's the responses I've received. Assyria Township, no response to my FOIA. Then no response to my question if the EPB data was retained or deleted. Baltimore Township, no response to my FOIA, no response to my question. Berry Township, denied. Forwarded my FOIA to the Bureau of Elections, whom I did not FOIA them. They cited the memo to the clerks from the Bureau of Elections instructing them not to release the data. Carlton, denied, referred me to the BOE, same thing. Castleton, no response to my FOIA or question. The City of Hastings, I received a denial letter from the law firm of Dickinson Wright. The records are exempt. They cited the memo from the Bureau of Elections to the clerks, don't release. Hastings Township, lawfully fulfilled my FOIA. Hope Township, denied, referred me to the Bureau of Elections, citing the memo from them, no response to my question if the EPB data was retained or deleted. Irving, lawfully fulfilled my FOIA. Johnstown, denied, deleted the EPB data per directive of the BOE. Maple Grove, no response to my FOIA. Orangeville, denied, deleted the EPB data per directive of BOE. Prairieville, denied, deleted the data per directive of BOE. Rutland, denied, deleted the data. Thornapple Township, they lawfully fulfilled my FOIA. Woodland Township, no response to my FOIA or my question. Yankee Springs Township, they denied it, deleted the data per the director of the BOE. I am simply bringing awareness to this very serious issue to the commissioners.
Is there additional public comment?
Hi, I'm Adrian Vandenberg, and I'm a student at Hastings High School, but I'm also the daughter of one of your guys' clerks. And I just want to say that you guys are their employers, and when they're asking for help, they really need you guys to fulfill your job. And it's your job as employers to give your employees the things that they need to be successful in their job. And when they fall behind, it's not only their fault, but it also falls on you guys because it's your responsibility to help them be successful in what they can do. And it's also hard to see my mom struggle the way that she does when she brings home work like this and can't focus on what's important, like my senior year, my graduation, my sister going to college. So I just want to say that these people that work for you are really asking for your help right now, and they shouldn't have to be up here when they could be downstairs doing their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda. Various correspondence. Does any commissioner have correspondence they would like to share with the board? Okay, consent agenda. Commissioner Smelker.
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of the June 13th, 2023 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes, approval of the June 20th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes, approval to appoint Yuli Salas to serve on the Berry County Planning Commission for a 3-year term that began on 5/1/23 and expires on 4/30 of 26, effective July 1st, 2023. Approval to appoint Craig Jenkins to serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term that began on 4/1/2021 and expires on 3/31/2024. Approval to appoint Don Johnson III to serve on the Solid Waste Oversight Committee as a solid waste industry representative for the remainder of a 3-year term that began on 11/1/20 and expires on 10/31/23. Approval of the Berry County Inmates Administrative Services contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan for July 2023 through June 2024.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty for all items listed on the consent agenda. Discussion is not allowed and a roll call vote is required. All those in favor vote aye, opposed vote nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Carlton absent. Campbell absent. Doster.
Aye.
Getty.
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Tunison.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. Presentations. We have Joe Verlin from Gabe Bridge and Company to go over the Berry County audited financial statement.
Morning.
Good morning, Joe.
I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to be here this morning. It's a pleasure to be here. And I will present the audit. I don't intend to cover all 140 pages. Hopefully that's not too upsetting to anyone. I'll cover the highlights. Certainly if there's any questions along the way, don't hesitate to ask. And in the 140-page report, what matters more than anything else is on page 1 of the audit. Here's where we provide an opinion on your financial statements. We wrote, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the county as of December 31st, 2022. This is a clean opinion. One time I explained it as being an unmodified opinion, which it is. And one of my clients became visibly upset and wanted to know what she needed to do to make sure she never got another unmodified opinion again. But unmodified is the gold standard. This is the highest level of an opinion that we can provide on your financial statements. It means that the information that was provided to us, the financial statements, we were able to work with third parties, confirm and verify the numbers with various financial institutions, the state of Michigan, granting agencies, to make sure that the information was accurate and timely. And everything came back clean, and as a result, you have a clean opinion on your audit report. It should always be the county's goal to have a clean opinion on your financial statements, but certainly it means something to achieve it. The next section of the report that I take readers through starts on page, actually, if you want to turn to page 2, the county had a change in accounting principle during 2022. It's Governmental Accounting Standards Board, statement number 87, leases. And there were a couple of lease liabilities that needed to be reported, and as well as leases receivable. Not a material impact on your financial statements as a whole, but I'll show you real quickly as we get into the footnote section, the impact that it did make on your financial statements. Typically about once every 5 years, we see one of these emphasis of matter paragraphs. What we're trying to do is point out to the readers of the financial statements that there's a new accounting pronouncement that was adopted during the course of the year. Now, if you go to page 6, we get into the management discussion and analysis section of the audit report. I would think of this as being the Cliff Note version of the audit. It's about 10 pages of comparative information. There's some analysis that explains reasons behind some of the more significant changes in your revenues and expenses and assets and liabilities during the course of the year. Starting on page 6, we get a look at the financial highlights. That first bullet point shows on the long-term basis of accounting or the accrual basis of accounting, if the county theoretically sold all of its assets and it paid off all of its liabilities, there would be about $61.2 million left over. It's referred to as net position. It's a theoretical number. Obviously, the county has no intention of doing that. But what does matter is that your net position increased by about $2.6 million during the course of the year. And what that means to the readers of the financial statements is that the county is better off financially at December 31st, 2022 than it was as of December 31st, 2021. So your financial position is improving, which is a positive sign. And then if we continue on through that first bullet point, we can see that your total unrestricted net position is about $23 million. And this is across all the governmental and business type funds of the county. So your general fund, the transit, Thornapple Manor, all of the funds combined, there's about $23 million available to cover the day-to-day cost of running the county. Second bullet point down, now we get a look at your fund balances. So the top bullet point is long-term. The second bullet point, I would think of this as being cash basis. So how much cash came in, how much cash went out during the course of the year, and how much was left over. The amount that's left over is referred to as fund balance. And across all the governmental funds of the county, there was about $15.3 million of total fund balance at the end of the year. And there was a decrease of about $103,000. So in other words, your cash out exceeded your cash in by about $100,000 during 2022. And of that $15.3 million, there's about $2.2 million of unassigned fund balance. So when we look just at the county's general fund and we look at how much is sitting in the unassigned, in other words, there's no earmarks, there's no restrictions on those funds. You have about $2.2 million available. And if we divide that by your annual general fund expenditures and transfers out, you have about 12% of funding. Not quite 2 months. Not too much, not too little. Most of our counties are anywhere from 10 to 20%. So you're kind of right in the middle of, in terms of how other counties rank. So healthy financial position at the end of the year. with regard to your unassigned fund balance. Third bullet point, now we're looking just again at the general fund. Your total general fund balance was about $4.6 million. Your general fund did have a decrease during the year of about $200,000 during the course of the year. So a slight decrease in your general fund. Total funds had about a $100,000 decrease. Your general fund had about a $200,000 decrease, which means all the other governmental funds of the county had about a $100,000 increase in fund balance. So essentially break even when we look at total revenues versus total expenditures across all the funds of the county during the course of the year. And continuing on through the management discussion and analysis, when we get to page 9, we get a look at the comparative assets and liabilities for the past 2 years of the county. And the very top row shows your cash and investments. And December 31st, 2021, the very top row, very far right column, about $50 million of total cash and investments. That number decreased down to $46.3 million as of December 31st, 2022. And the biggest reason for that decrease is the very next row down. You can see that the receivables increased from $9.7 million to about $17.4 million as of December 31st, 2022. And the biggest reason for that increase in your receivables was at Thornapple Manor. And then if you look, the county, about 25% of the way down in the non-current asset section, the net OPEB asset decreased. As of December 31st, 2021, the county had about $750,000 of a net OPEB asset. That number decreased to about $530,000 for a number of reasons. Still, the fact that the county has a net OPEB asset is a very good sign. Most of our counties have net OPEB liabilities, which means they are underfunded and need to catch it up over a period of time, whereas you guys are fully funded with your retiree health care. If you look about halfway down the page in the current liability section, we can see that unearned revenue increased. December 31st, 2021, it was about $6.1 million, and that number increased up to about $11.36 million as of December 31st, 2022. The biggest reason was the additional ARPA funding that the county has received during 2022. So it's been received, collected, and it's just a matter of time before the county expends the remaining ARPA funds that are available. And then if you look about 80% of the way down in the non-current liability section, you can see that the county's net pension liability increased substantially. So in 2021, that number was about $12.4 million, and it increased all the way up to $22.6 million. Now the county is still 78% funded with regard to your net pension liability, so you're funded better than average. Most of our counties range between 70 and 75%, so the county's still at 78%. The biggest reason for the increase in your net pension liability is the market performance during 2021. So the market lost about 14%, as well as changes in assumptions, and that had about a $10 million increase in your long-term liability. The county still has 17 years to fully fund that amount, so it's not like a check needs to be cut immediately, but certainly a substantial increase in the county's total net pension liability.
Could
And
you,
then-
could
Sure.
you go into that a little further?
Yep, there's actually a schedule that has 8 years worth of comparative information. I will get to that in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then 2 rows up in the bottom, the unrestricted net position in 2021 came in at $17.5 million. That number improved up to about $23 million as of December 31st, 2022. And if you go to the very next page, page 11, we get a look at the comparative revenues and expenses of the county for the past 2 years. And again, I'm going to look at the last 2 columns. So total county across all of your funds, 2021, about 1/3 of the way down. Your total revenues last year, 2021, were about $51.8 million. And that number increased up to about $55.8 million for the 12 months ended December 31st, 2022. The biggest reason being about a $2.5 million increase in ARPA funds that the county was able to recognize as revenue during 2022. So one-time revenues, there is additional ARPA funding, as we saw on the comparative statement of net position, but those are one-time revenues. Still, it certainly helped the county during 2022 by about $2.5 million. And then if you look about 5 rows up from the bottom, you can see that the changes in net position before transfers, or your total increase in net position, In 2021 was a positive $3.1 million approximately, compared to a positive $2.6 million during 2022. Again, federal relief funds, the ARPA funds certainly helped with that, but again, back-to-back years of increasing that position for the county. Now, if we go to page 21, we get a look at the governmental funds of the county. These are being reported on the modified accrual or the cash basis of accounting. And the very first column shows how the general fund performed during 2022. And you can see the very top section shows total revenues came in $17.5 million compared to total expenditures of about $17.1 million. And then net transfers out, 4 rows up from the bottom, were about $700,000 transfer out during the course of the year, leading to a decrease in the general fund's fund balance of roughly $200,000 during 2022. And then if you go to the very last column, we can see all the funds aggregated together. As mentioned in the financial highlights, about a $103,000 decrease in total fund balance across all funds of the county, being on the cash basis of accounting. Now if you go all the way to page 70, we get into the footnote section of the audit report. I mentioned the change in accounting principle note on the independent auditor's report, or the emphasis of matter paragraph. And note 18 is just a real quick summary of the impact that it had on the county's financial statements. So at the very bottom, it references notes 5, 6, and 7. Note 5 is on page 49. We don't necessarily need to go back to page 49, but to summarize it, there were leases receivable over the next 5-10 years that the county is going to recognize as a revenue that equaled about $232,000. And what the Governmental Accounting Standards Board wants to do is basically show readers of the financial statements how much lease receivables are going to be collected from the various departments, primarily the airport in this case, just to show readers what those non-cancelable lease arrangements are going to provide in terms of revenues in the upcoming years. So about $232,000. It had no impact on fund balance or net position because we back it all off with a deferred inflow. I'll get into the nuts and bolts of it, but basically it had no impact on your fund balance. But it does show readers that there's roughly $230,000 of leases receivable. Note 6 goes on to show readers of the financial statements that the county had about, coincidentally, $234,000 of leases that it is the lessee for various pieces of equipment, things of that nature. So there were assets put onto the books of $234,000 as well as a lease liability for the same amount. So again, no impact on fund balance or net position, but it does show readers of the financial statements that the county has about $234,000 of non-cancelable lease obligations that are going to be paid out in the upcoming years. Now if we go to page 76, we get into the...
Do you suppose we could go back to page 67?
Sure.
Before we get too far past it.
Sure.
The investment rate of return.
Okay. So the MERS Actuarial Retirement Board, or the MERS Retirement Board, has revised its long-term expected rate of return to 7%. So 5-6 years ago, that number was as high as 8%, and then it went down to 7.65% or 7.6%, and now they've dropped it a couple more times down to 7%. So they're trying to make sure that they have the best representation of what that long-term rate of return is going to be. So looking at the historical data in terms of what the returns have been, with all the various municipalities that participate in the MERS plan, they've revised that estimate to 7%. And if you look at last year's report, I believe it was 7.25%. So they're trying to, over time, get it to the point where it's the most, or the best representation of what the economic reality is in terms of that long-term rate of return.
And obviously, the economic reality was significantly different than the 7.2% increase.
Sure.
It was a decrease of substantial amount.
Of 14%. So
how did they not notice that?
well, they're trying to forecast the future. So looking back at the past 15, 20, 25 years of what the MERS ordinarily generates in terms of an investment rate of return, they feel that 7% is the best representation. Now, 2021, we saw a 14% decrease in the MERS assets. 2020, 2019, both of those years coincidentally had about 14% favorable increase, an increase on investment returns. So some years it's going to be better than 7%. Other years it's going to be less than 7%. Just like, my 401k does the same thing at home. I think over the next 20 years, I'm going to get 7 or 8% on my retirement assets. There's going to be some years where it beats it. And there's going to be other years where the market comes in under that number. But this is just a forecasted rate of return.
Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but about a year ago, I came in and got the budget, and I brought this graph to your attention. And didn't we call the auditor at that point, saying that that was a ridiculously high rate of return? I was saying, my rate of return on my bank account is like 1/10 of 1% at that time. And now it's made, and you contacted them and they said, well, we were like 2 months into the system, and already it was significantly behind. And yet those numbers were never recorrelated to what the actual rate was at that time. And now we've got a deficit of, what is it, $9 million off of our projection?
Right.
Which you're asking that we make that up over a 4-year period of time?
17 years
17-year period.
is the
of time.
actuarial term. So again, this is based on, you're referencing, a bank account. The MERS doesn't have money sitting in bank accounts. It's sitting in the stock market.
Yes, well, the stock market was not performing either.
Sure.
I was just using that as an example.
Sure.
To correlate to maybe possibly the bond rate. That some of it is in bonds, is it not?
Yeah, the page 67 shows the makeup of
Yes.
where those funds are
And
invested.
those rates are not going to be, they're not going to hold in the future, are they?
I wish I could answer that question. It's based on historical data, what those long-term historical rates of return have been.
So they don't look at what's actually happening in the market. They just go by a number that's been generated off of many years of the past.
Sure, yes.
Okay.
The assumed rate of 7% is designed for funding purposes. So as this pension system goes on, you have people coming into it and people coming out. There's pension checks that are going out, and then there's funding that comes from the employer. And the funding to pay the pension checks comes from primarily two sources. One, the investment earnings on the assets that you have in the pool, and two, what the employer contributes every year into the pension system that then gets invested. If MERS weren't to make an assumption, if you may, about what that long-term investment should be of the assets that were invested, if you were to assume it was zero, for example, we would be woefully overcharging the employer every year for contributions into the plan. So on the flip side, if you make an assumption on the long-term earnings of the assets that are in the plan that aren't being paid out in pension checks but are being invested, and you assume too high, we'd be undercharging the employers or the participating municipalities, and you'd ultimately end up with a significantly underfunded plan. So it is a real delicate balance, and so you establish this funded level, this assumed rate of return, and again, some years, to Joe's point, the market returns more than that, 10, 11, 12%, 14%. So not only do you add assets into your plan because of the growth in the market. Then there are years that the plan doesn't meet the assumed rate of return. And I can tell you those are frustrating years. And what happens is your status.
Such as this one, right?
Yeah. And your funding goes down. I was talking with Commissioner Smelker just a little bit about that it fluctuates. So all of a sudden, one year your funded status is 83%, and the next year you're at 78%, and then really have to look, you can't look at the pension system too terribly granularly, if that makes sense. You've got, and that's why I think that Joe would maybe advocate that the statement of there's ultimately looking at, in that note, that statement that 10 years, is it 8 or 10 years of data? So that you look at the trends. And the question that really needs to be asked from my perspective of MERS is that rate of return, that assumed rate of return of 7% now, an accurate, again, representation of what the future, they say
Yes.
the past is no representation of, there's always that, of what the future will hold. And historically, we were at MERS at 8%, and we met that 8% rate of return for a 30-year period. We're still meeting over the longer term the 7%. We felt that, and I say we because I serve on the board, that the 8% needed to be moved down to 7, that it wasn't as likely as an institutional plan. I get that there are folks out there that have their individual portfolios and have been able to when MERS had that 14% year, as an individual portfolio may have been a 20 or 23%. If you had everything in one stock and we can't do that, right? We can't have those wild swings. So we give up some upside earnings to make sure that there's downside protection, so that and we do that so that the plan always has enough money to pay out the roughly $50 million in pension checks that goes out every month.
So the bottom line is, because of the difference of what was anticipated for this year, the employees of the county will be charged an additional amount for 17 years to make up for this single year?
It does impact the normal cost that gets attributed each year to the county to be paid.
You have a 17-year schedule.
Right. Mhm.
They will be paying in an additional amount for 17 years to make up for the difference of
I gotta interrupt for
such.
just a minute.
Is that correct?
Employees will not.
Okay, who will?
Employees will not. The employer
Us. We will.
potentially will. Although you have to look at it over time, because you'll notice that in the schedule, and I don't have it right in front of me, but in 2021, we gained 7 million in assets because of a good year. In 2022, we lost 6 million. A portion of that, and is it maybe 1/17th, is amortized now each year over the next year. And it becomes layered. So what would happen if you look back a year, not only did our investment earnings raise our assets in the pool, but then they took a 17th of that, if I'm saying this right, Joe, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
And they applied that to the amortization. So while this year, we're getting hit for an additional $697,000, and it sounds like a lot that's amortized over that 17 years. The previous year, we had roughly $700,000 on the other side that brought it down. So, I get it, it's actuarial, but you have this layered amortization that some years we end up having to pick up a little bit more. Some years we gain because of the market. That comes out in the end over the long term. The key is, if we've struck that over a 10 or a 20 or 30-year period, that 7% is the right mark. The line is doing this, but we're always staying level at that 7%. So it doesn't.
And are you, you said that you sit on the board, you're the president of the board, correct?
The chair, yeah.
The chair of the board. And this trend is going down for a projected rate of return currently. Do you foresee that going down further?
We're watching it. I don't know. We're making the 7, and on the short term right now, our 5-year, 3 and 5 year isn't hitting the 7, but our 10 and beyond is. So we're watching it. What we have done, we would like to continue to move it slightly if we can. We recognize that every time you move that assumed rate of return, somebody has to pay for that, because it's assumed. So that ends up on the employers. So we made some changes in the last 5-ish years that brought it from 8 down to 7. The most recent change, we've mitigated, if you may, the impact by implementing what's called and there's a term for it. Long and short of it is, at this point, the only way we're gonna move that assumed rate of return down is we're gonna buy it down. So in those years that we have an 8, a 9, a 10, 11, a 12, anything above the 7% rate of return, we apply that, and instead of growing the pool, we use it to buy down that rate of return from, and I think our last one went from 7.35 or 7.25 to get us to that 7%. We used that, I think it was in 2020 or 2021, the positive investment earnings to buy down that investment rate of return.
Okay, my last question.
Yep.
The 17 years of amortization, that's a moving 17 years? There is not an actual start to that, correct?
It's a layered, so great question. When I first got on the board, it was a rolling 30 years.
Okay.
So it was effectively like you were remortgaging every year, and you never got out from under it. That's not how it is now. What will happen is that all of your liability doesn't get amortized. We will get to a point where it's 17, and then I think it's maybe down to, anything that's new is 5. You gotta look at the details of that. But it's a layered, it's no longer that rolling where
Okay.
you never get out from under
Yeah.
it. Great question that we dealt with early on my term on the board, because it was frustrating. It's like, wait a minute, we'll never get out from under
All
it.
right. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I hope that was helpful.
For what it's worth, I am covered by 3 different retirement funds from some of the largest pension fund companies in the country. And it was interesting to compare the MERS set of assumptions and expectations with what I see on those. And we're very much in the ballpark for what those other major funds are doing. So there's a lot of commonality in what their investment return expectations are and the manner in which they deal with passing some of that cost on to the employers.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to that, the Michigan Department of Treasury publishes uniform assumptions each year to make sure these rates of return are falling within their guidelines. So there is oversight happening to make sure that we, local units of government, are using appropriate long-term rates of return. And certainly 7% falls within their range. Page 76 is the schedule that shows the trend over the past several years for the county. Very top row, or very top section, shows the total pension liability as of December 31st, 2022, was $102,421,000. That's the amount that the actuaries believe the county is going to pay out over the course of the next 30, 40, 50 years to fully fund its liability for those pension payments. And that includes the transit as well as Thornapple Manor, in addition to the county. 2/3 of the way down, we can see the total assets that the county has, which are about $80 million to cover the liability. And then the difference being the net pension liability of $22.6 million. And when we take the total assets divided by the total liability, the county's at 77.93% funded. About halfway down the page, you can see the net investment income or loss. 2022, a loss of about $2.55 million. And then, as mentioned earlier, 2021, 2020 had both, really, the 3 years on this schedule had losses. The other years had gains. So again, over time, the goal is to make sure that that 7% is being met with the ebbs and flows that the market has. So, but again, 77.93% is 18 points better than Treasury expects. Treasury expects a minimum funding percentage of 60%, and most of our counties range 70 to 75%. So definitely on track. And if you go now to page 78, we get a very similar schedule for the county's retiree healthcare liability. Smaller numbers. The top section, the total OPEB liability came in at $325,847. And then 2/3 of the way down the page, the planned fiduciary net position, or the total assets to cover that liability, $859,081, leaving a net OPEB asset, because your assets exceed your liability, of $533,000. And then lastly, if you go all the way to page 141, towards the very end of the report, because the county expends more than $750,000 of federal funds each year, we perform, in addition to the financial statement audit, a second compliance audit, or a federal single audit report. So we take a look at all of your federal programs, and we pick 1 or 2 of them. We consider them to be major programs, and then we go to the federal guidance that's out there, and we identify all the strings that are attached with those funds, and we make sure that the county is receiving and expending those funds correctly. And we take a look at the county's controls over those federal funds and make sure that they're appropriately designed and effectively operating. So in addition, the very top section of this page shows that we had an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. Halfway down the page, you can see a second opinion was rendered. The type of auditor's report issued on compliance for major programs, that too was an unmodified opinion. So in other words, your controls over your federal funds are suitably designed, they're effectively operating to make sure that the county has reasonable assurance that you're spending those funds in accordance with the various compliance requirements that the feds have on those funds. And then a little bit further down, you can see that the program that we took a look at this year, we rotate and make sure we look at different grants each year. In 2022, we took a look at the ARPA funds, so Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, more commonly known as your ARPA funds, was selected as the major program. So very clean audit report all around, and certainly.
Could I ask about the layers of control?
Sure.
Generally, would you say that the more layers of control, the better, basically?
Sure. Yes.
So, like this board in particular doesn't actually have a treasurer. It doesn't have a finance committee. We don't actually see monthly statements. Wouldn't those all be good things to have additional control over the audit in order to assure that the funds are going where they're supposed to?
Yep, we always encourage separation of duties. That's always a good thing. You know, if employee A is initiating a transaction, we like employee B to be reviewing it and making sure that it's not necessarily looking for honest errors. Like we're all human, we all make honest errors. It's nice to have that second set of eyes looking at those transactions and making sure that everything's being recorded and reported correctly.
Are there any second eyes on our financials that you can see?
I'd have to go and look at the actual work papers to provide a more, off the top of my head.
Isn't that what you look at, though, when you determine whether
Yes.
it's an unqualified audit
Yes.
or not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't have any such findings. It came back clean.
Would you suggest that the board have a finance committee, for example?
Ultimately.
Or regular financial reports that we would see every month?
Yes. Yep, we would certainly encourage that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Questions from commissioners?
Did you provide the audit, or did you just send, having 2 pages on a single page that are all kittywampus is very, very difficult to read, especially if you're gonna look back at this over a period of time.
We prepared.
Did you?
That way. So you received it, and we can do it differently if you like. A couple things real quickly. One, in the agenda, there was a link that took you to
Yes.
the audit itself, and we do that with larger documents. Otherwise, people that try to download it and whatnot from home, it just clogs everything up. And then when we printed a copy, to save a little bit of paper, we do it that way. If you'd like a printed copy, full bound, we can certainly get you that. We'd be happy to. And then in response to the financial reports, my apologies if you weren't aware, the green binders sitting over there, they used to be on the file cabinets, but we had to move those because the file cabinets have every month's financial reports in them. If you'd like those emailed to you, we can certainly do that as well. The expenditure and the revenue reports, and if you'd like the trial balance, but yeah, we can certainly do that. So if there's some additional material or documentation that you'd like, just let us know, and we'd be happy to get that for any
All
of
right,
you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joe. It sounds like the state of the county is good financially.
Yes.
I appreciate the depth of the report and the overview on all the highlights of that. That's a pretty extensive report to go through and
Sure.
and kind of internalize on short notice. But good to know that year over year, things are continuing to look good, that we are in a strong financial position. And we appreciate the guidance and leadership of Michael Brown and county administration in guiding us that way, and the department heads who make that all happen as well. So,
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you, Joe. Next up, we are going to do some employee service awards. I don't think Cindy is here today from the animal shelter, but I know Susan Huber is here. Please, come on down. "10 years of dedicated service to the county." I know we've worked together. What other positions have you had with the county?
Starting in family court, went to the prosecutor's office, and planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning.
County Commission on Aging.
I know you have been a familiar face around here, so congratulations on 10 years of service. We certainly appreciate that time and all the experience you bring to the county with those positions. Thank you, Susan. And when we're done, we will take a break and let Jason get a picture of all our recipients. So, Stephanie Lehman. Congratulations. 15 years of service. Seems like we've been working together longer than that. I think you've aged better than I have in the process, though. So anyways, but grateful appreciation to a county for all you do, for all you continue to do at 911 and Central Dispatch. That department's never been in better hands, and there's a lot of good things happening there. And talking with Commissioner Smelker and our commissioners working on that, it's been an awesome experience, and we appreciate all you do. So thank you, Stephanie.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Holly Lennar and Sarah Vandenberg. You would be Holly?
Yes.
And Sarah? We certainly appreciate what you guys have done. I know it's been an extremely trying time trying to work through some of these little details and everything, but we definitely want to know how much you are appreciated down there in your work and your efforts and your stress. It's all appreciated, and we're going to see if we can take care of some of that today. So,
Thank you. We
and I
appreciate
should note that Sarah, 15 years, and Holly, 5 years. So, and thank you guys for all you do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Julie Smith from Friend of the Court. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
20 years. Was it 20 years at Friend of the Court the entire time?
Went fast.
Well, I wanted to say thank you. 20 years is an outstanding career, and we appreciate your time and effort and energy in there, especially continuing to serve Friend of the Court. That can be an interesting job at times like that, but you do it with a smile on your face, and your efforts are much appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you.
From the Sheriff's Office, we have Brian Hansford and Bill Rumpf. Are they in attendance today?
I don't believe they are.
They are not here, okay. We will give those for you to take, and then Assistant Manager Matthew Funk from Berry County Transit. Matthew, we appreciate your efforts. Let's see what my notes say there. 5 years. So we appreciate the efforts and the time service. We know that that's an interesting position, especially with some of the things we've been through with COVID and some of the hoops you guys have had to jump through. So we appreciate your efforts as well. Thank you very much. If all of our recipients would like to come forward so Jason could take a photo opportunity for us. I was taking them outside? All right, perfect. The board will be at recess for 10 minutes.
many years ago.
Thanks for coming, Ted.
Oh, good to see you too.
For rent, for rent. The board will come back in session. Moving on our agenda, items for consideration, Commissioner Tunison.
Mr. Chair, I'd like the approval of claims in the amount of $767.29.
Motion by Tunison, support by Smelker for approval of claims in the amount of $100,767.29. Is there discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Campbell absent. Doster.
Aye.
Getty. Aye. Hatfield.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Tunison.
Aye.
Carlton absent. Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. And just to give you a little background on our next item for consideration, we had another interviewee, Jessica Goodenough, that we were going to interview today. It turns out that because of her employment, she was not eligible for that position on Community Mental Health Board. So she is not, we've discussed that with her, she will not be interviewing today. So the motion is the approval to appoint Lorraine Lindsay. She was the other candidate that interviewed, also had interviewed before, was very well qualified for that position as well. So,
And what board, to the mental health board?
yeah, Community Mental Health Board, so
Okay, why don't we make that motion?
please.
Support.
All right. Motion by Tunison, support by Hatfield for the approval to appoint Lorraine Lindsay to serve on the Berry County Community Mental Health Authority Board for a partial term that began on April 1st, 2021 and expire on March 31st, 2024. Discussion. Hearing
She
none.
was a great candidate.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very good, very qualified, I agree. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Doster. Getty.
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Tunison.
Aye.
Carlton absent. Campbell absent. Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chair, approval to add one deputy clerk position in the Berry County Clerk's office with funds to come from the fund balance in the general fund.
Support Doster.
Motion by Tunison, support by Doster for approval to add one deputy clerk position in the Berry County Clerk's office with funds to come from fund balance in the general fund. Discussion.
I know Pam wouldn't have come in front of us if it wasn't very needed. So,
I guess my comment on it is, I'm gonna vote yes on this position. And as far as I can see, that it's coming out of fund balance. So I believe this needs to be looked at real good when we do budget this year.
Okay.
See if we can't get it back somewhere.
Agreed.
Any other input or questions, comments? Okay. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Getty.
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Tunison.
aye.
Carlton is absent. Campbell is absent. Doster.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, we have none. New business, we have none. County Administrator's report.
I'm all set, thank you.
Chairperson's report, I am all set as well. Vice Chairperson's report.
Planning Commission met last night and had a good discussion, public hearing on the master plan. We had approximately 20 people in attendance at the meeting, 8 or 9 of which chose to make comment. Comments were primarily surrounded either blue zones or the expanded commercial area that's designated for Johnstown Township. There was extensive discussion after the public hearing was closed, that we made some relatively minor changes in the plan, but I think particularly the changes in nomenclature you'll see when you get the revised draft, helped resolve some of the concern around blue zones. End result is the planning commission voted to forward the plan to us with a recommendation to approve. So you'll see that probably the second CAL in July.
Okay. With those amendments?
With those amendments.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
I would like to commend Commissioner Hatfield. I attended that last night, and he did a good job, very good job of navigating through that. And there was compromises, and I think it's going to be really good for the community, so.
Awesome. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Tennyson.
I got a lot of emails from people concerned about fireworks and what we could do about it as a county board. Obviously, I've checked into this, and I've talked to the chair and numerous people. There's nothing that we can do to curb anyone from doing their own personal fireworks. Just with caution, it is very dry. Do it in a safe manner, and try not to catch the woods on fire.
Yeah, that is regulated by the state, and we have no authority.
We have
over
no
that.
authority, unfortunately, and people want to enjoy their fireworks, and my family enjoys fireworks too. So just try to be responsible and have fun, be safe.
Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Getty. Commissioner Smelker.
Had a 911 meeting yesterday. We voted to levy the mill, which is with Headley .946 something, I believe. And we will be putting new MDCs in patrol cars this year because their life expectancy is up. Their life expectancy is only 5 years. And also at our transit meeting, our director is retiring in January, and we'll be going through a hiring process.
Okay. And just for the sake of everybody else, because I asked this question earlier, what is an MDC?
Mobile data computer. It's the ones that the deputies and officers have in their vehicle.
Okay. Okay. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
It won't be 3 minutes, I promise. I'm just up here on behalf of the clerk's office, and we watched and really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us and do your due diligence to use the funds that are available to fund our office. So on behalf of everybody in our office, we really, 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 truly appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Additional public comment? Going once? Okay. Other business, Commissioner Smelker.
I have nothing. Thank you.
You were going to read.
Oh.
I don't have that copy of the agenda, but if you have a
Mr.
copy
Chair,
of it.
I move to go into closed session in accordance with Public Act 267 of 1976, 15.268, Section 8H, to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute.
I'll support that. Can I have my agenda back? No.
No.
In a second. Motion by Smelker, supported by Getty, to go into closed session in accordance with Public Act 267 of 1976, 15.268, Section 8H, to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute. Discussion?
This is kind of the broadest exemption that's listed. I have no idea what we're discussing. I generally don't like to go into meetings without have some clue as to what it is I'm discussing. Is there any way that you can elaborate on a topic is what this is?
Michael?
I'm gonna defer to our attorney who's here so that I don't, it is an attorney-client privilege communication.
This exemption is the broadest exemption, you're right, and we're going to discuss issues related to Pine Lake that are privileged between attorney-client privilege, and the county is the client.
Thank you.
And anyone who goes into this closed session will then not be able to discuss this matter?
Correct.
Just the privilege part. You can discuss Pine Lake, it's free time.
Just the privileged part. Well, I can't imagine what that would be, that it wouldn't be in the public interest to be public. It's a public matter. In order to do a vote on this, requires 2/3, correct? Is that correct? Entire board?
I believe it's the quorum part of the board, so it's the people who are present, 2/3 of those.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Because 2/3 of the whole would require 6 votes. I'm not persuaded to go into closed session over this issue. I think must be a matter of public interest. I think it should be discussed in public. There's been no notice to the people of Pine Lake that an issue might be coming before them. They have counsel as well. They would, I'm sure, love to be informed that this issue is back before the board in some matter. At the very least, this should be delayed until all sides can be given notice as to what's going on.
I don't think that makes any sense. We're going into closed session to consider confidential client privilege here, that I think we need to go into closed session, learn about this, and then it'll probably come back on our agenda where everybody will be notified so we can have a discussion with their counsel and with the people of Pine Lake who want to participate.
We will be publicly talking about it eventually, right?
Absolutely. This is nothing being
Nothing
done in secret.
that's going to be, not unless you waive the attorney-client privilege of what's coming before you in closed session.
Further,
I'm not going to vote for it, and I don't know whether I would attend.
okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Hatfield.
Aye.
Smoker.
Aye.
Tunison.
Aye.
Colton absent. Campbell absent. Doster.
Nay.
Getty.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Okay, the board is adjourned for closed session. Catherine, you can have your agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, my notes on it. That's my most important piece of paper.
Yeah.
Just a quick note, the closed session will meet down in the circuit court jury room. And for those that choose to stay around, the video camera will still be on, the audio will be muted. So just to give you fair warning, what we do is leave the streaming go, instead of turning it off and restarting it, the audio will be off. It'll be on your best
At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of closed session.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty for approval of the minutes of closed session. All those in favor, so discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Doster?
Yes. The board appointed me to the Gun Lake Improvement Board. Thought I'd give you a little update, what's occurred there. That board is chaired by Vivian Connor, and Jim Dull is the secretary/clerk. And apparently after Tammy Hayes left his office, there wasn't anybody that's capable or willing to answer FOIA requests from that office. And so Jim brought a motion to hire Mr. Kalani of Clark Hill that we just spoke to be the FOIA officer, and at an amount of $200 an hour with a minimum of 1 to 2 hours for each request, that he will be paid, his office, his firm, for every single FOIA request. And they somehow think that they can then make the person who requested the FOIA then pay for that, which, not under my understanding. The only charge that you can do is the lowest. The waste seems like such an enormous waste of resources when I feel like that office should be capable of answering these FOIAs. In most cases, it's simply asking for agendas and minutes. Anyways.
Interesting. You're saying the Drain Commissioner's office?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Commissioner Getty?
Yankee Springs Township Fire Station has their annual breakfast on July 1st from 7 to 10:30. It's a good opportunity to get down there and tour the fire station and just mingle with the fire department and see their facility.
Awesome. Commissioner Smelker?
July 29th is the Freeport Car Show. Last year, we had 134 cars, 114 of them registered. And this year, we are going to try to add an antique tractor display. Oh, I got
Awesome. Commissioner Hatfield?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Tunison?
July 4th, Commissioner Smelker and I will be sitting out on a pontoon in the middle of Middle Lake, judging the pontoons that go by, enjoying the company of the residents of the lake.
Wow.
For a potluck afterwards, so I'm looking forward to that, so.
You guys are privileged
Everybody
sitting
have
on a
Yeah, how
boat.
come you get all the easiest on it?
Yeah, sitting on a boat
That's the
judging boats.
easiest one
so
I've
you know.
had yet. What are you talking about?
We don't know how irate they'll get after we choose.
I am all set. If there are no further